All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome back to True Crime Loser. I hope you're doing well this morning. Happy New Year. So, I got one for you guys today. My dad, my girlfriend, and I went and saw the movie Uncut Gems on Christmas Eve in Grand Junction, and it made me think of this story. And I always wanted to do it for this channel, so here we go. So a guy named Julio Nivelo got to New York City in 1989 and was a thief. And what Julio would do is he would go to Midtown, which is whenever they show New York in a movie or in a show or something, usually it's Midtown. That's the neighborhood where there's like 40 people waiting to cross the street on this side and 40 people on this side, and then the crosswalk says go and all the people cross and bump into each other, and there's a bunch of lights and really tall buildings and Times Square, and it's pretty much just a fucking nightmare to be there. And so what Julio would do is he became good at stealing merchandise like laptops and electronics off of trucks that had pulled into somewhere in Midtown and had opened the back and then were either being unloaded or whatever. And so it said that he became good at distracting the drivers or the unloaders or whatever it is, and he would lift, I don't know, a whole pallet worth of merchandise, or he would just snake it right off the truck. That's how he made his money. And Julio was caught and deported in 1994 and in 2001 and in 2005 and again in 2008. So he didn't ever use any tools or weapons, but he was brazen. He was willing to give her a shot. And in interviews, he would later say that he had always kept his eye open for this certain type of pail or bucket that companies in armored trucks, like Loomis was the one that went down, but there's a certain type of black pail bucket, kind of an official looking thing that they transport tons of gold in. So companies like Loomis will transfer a bunch of gold, deliver it to somewhere in Manhattan. In the Diamond District, which is where most of the movie Uncut Gems takes place, which is just a nutty world. One time I was walking through there and I saw a middle-aged guy wearing an orange Gucci tracksuit with orange Gucci shoes with pinky rings on both pinkies, talking on two cell phones at once. I was like, I got to get out of here. This is not my area. But it's right there in Midtown on 47th Street. And so Julio, he's stealing laptops, he's stealing whatever he can from trucks, but he's always thinking and keeping his eye out for the holy grail, the black pail of gold. And on September 29th, while he's bumming around trying to steal stuff from trucks in Midtown, he sees a Loomis truck, and he sees the coveted big black pail. And Navarro is a pretty small, short Ecuadorian man. And he sees this pail, and he sees that there's only 2 workers, which seems like enough for me. If I just think about it, 2 seems like enough to guard a little gold. But to him, it was just a gift from God. He was sitting there going, only 2? Only 2 people? This gold is mine. And so one of the 2 was off in the gold store or wherever they drop it off, And the other one is just kind of sitting behind the truck, making sure no one steals the gold. And at one point, the person guarding it walked to the cab of the truck to check his cell phone. And there was obvious speculation. Was this guy in on it with Julio? If you're the person that guards the gold, why would you go check your cell phone with the door up? But as it unfolds, it doesn't look like they were in cahoots with each other. So the man that is, his job is to stand there and make sure no one steals all of the gold, goes into the truck to check his cell phone. Julio doesn't waste any time. He looks around. He walks up. This is the big moment. He called it the Super Bowl. He said, if you're a football player, you're always looking for the Super Bowl, and this gold bucket is the Super Bowl if you're a Midtown truck thief. And so he wastes no time, and he walks up to the back of the truck, and he picks up this big black pail of gold, and he starts to walk away. Well, the first of many problems arise, and that is that the pail of gold that he just picked up weighs 86 pounds. And Navarro is a small Ecuadorian man, and so 86 pounds for a man that weighs 150 pounds is pretty heavy. And he lugs and drags and hauls and just everything that he can to get this thing a few blocks away. And it takes him like 3 hours to get a good distance away with this. And I mean, his adrenaline had to have just been rocked too. So even with that adrenaline, he was really struggling to carry this thing. And then finally he gets over to Fifth Avenue, which is a few long blocks over, and no one's following him. And he thinks, I did it. The game's over. I won. I'm sitting here with my pail. And he calls a friend and says, I got this bucket of paint. I need a ride to New Jersey. That's where he lived. I need a ride over the Hudson River and I'm to Jersey because I got this paint. And so a friend in a van comes, picks him up, and he heads to Jersey. Okay. So now the story hits the news. Man steals $1.6 million in gold in a giant black pail and drags it away, basically. And there's a bunch of footage of him like in all these different positions as they get uncomfortable because it's so heavy. And I've always loved stories like this, so I instantly was following it and instantly in my head being like, okay, if I stole all of that gold, how would you get away with it? You know, it's almost like the movie No Country for Old Men. He finds all that money and he's sitting there looking at it and it's almost irresistible and he takes it, but it's like, well, it ruined his life, you know? So the problems now that I was thinking in his head, okay, so how do you get 1.86 pounds worth of gold? How do you trade that for money? I wouldn't know how to do it. Even if I had the opportunity and knew what one of those black buckets looked like and walked by and was like, oh, this is perfect, I don't have the connections to turn it into money. Me and my friend would, during this whole thing, would go back and forth with our plans, how we would get away with it. And since I don't have any connections, I don't have a fence or any black market gold connections, what I would have had to have done is go into some place in the Diamond District and just walk in and say, look, I'm going to give you a really smoking deal, but you got to just delete all your cameras. Don't tell anyone I came. I'll split it with you or something. And the thing about the The thing about the Diamond District is, like, if you bring jewelry to a pawn shop, they take a photo of your ID. They take a copy of your ID, of your driver's license. They take pictures of the jewelry and they put it online in a database. There's all these measures to make sure it's not stolen stuff. If you bring jewelry to the Diamond District, they'll have the diamonds yanked out and the gold and silver melted down before you even get your ID out. Before you even say your name, the whole thing will just be a new pair of earrings or something. And so my plan always was that I would go in, try to just give the person in some, gold dealer a smoking deal to hopefully not tell the cops if they have cameras following me all the way into his shop, which pretty much they did. They had video canvas of him walking almost the whole way, and then getting into the van, which I learned in my grand jury stint about those video canvases, and it's pretty crazy. Just detectives, or I'm sure multiple detectives in this case, just go business to business, building to building, and say, from this time to this time, can we look at your camera? So you got to imagine how much work it is too. But in New York City, there's so many cameras, they usually, with enough time and work, get the crime, and then they follow the person all the way home to their doorstep. It's like, it doesn't matter if you run away 4 blocks and then just walk like, nothing's happening, I'm good, and then walk home if they have the film the whole way. So it's kind of the talk of the town. Little Ecuadorian man steals $1.6 million in gold and lugs it away, and that's all that you hear. And so I'm thinking, there's no way this guy's going to make it far. I didn't know he was a thief at the time and had connections on how to turn stolen merchandise into money. So my first thing was, there's no way. It's like a No Country for Old Men thing. He's gonna be caught. It's gonna ruin his whole life. And at the time, this is in 2016, I was walking this dog for a really wealthy couple, and they had a Colombian nanny, this woman that took care of the baby. I think I've talked about her before. So I would get to this really nice apartment every day, and she was pretty starved for adult conversation because she's just hanging out with the baby all day in this huge apartment. So I get there one day, and we're talking about, did you see the guy, the Ecuadorian guy that stole all the gold? And she's following it too. And so she's from Colombia, and I was like, I don't think he's going to get away with that. I don't think he's going to get out of here. And then I told her that he had been deported in 1994 and in 2001 and in 2005 and in 2008 and had always come back. She was like, forget it. He's going to make it to Ecuador. Someone like that obviously knows how to move around and is not stopped by whatever immigration that we do. So immigration policies that we do. And so her first thing was like, he's going to be gone. I was like, I don't know. How is he going to get out of the country? And another funny, just real quick story about this Colombian lady is her son was, I think, like a brutal alcoholic, lived with her and her husband. It wasn't the husband's kid. The son's real dad still lived in Colombia, but he just lived in their apartment and pretty much just drank booze and chain smoked all the time. And she was always so worried, would tell me, my son, I'm so worried. I don't want to, kick him out because he's just going to probably be homeless. He didn't work. She would say, you got to get a job. You got to get your shit together. You can't live with us. You're driving my husband crazy, just always home, drinking and smoking. And she was giving him the money for cigarettes and booze just because she felt bad. And then all of a sudden, she was tired of enabling him. So she would tell me this every day. My son, I think about all the time. I'm worried about it. I'd be like, yeah, sorry. while I'm grabbing the labradoodle, you know. And then she was tired of enabling him. And so she told him, I'm not going to give you any more money for the booze and cigarettes anymore. You got to figure out a job. You got to move out at some point. And he would just sort of call her bluff by saying, I don't care. I'll just be homeless. You know, I don't fucking care. And then she would feel bad and let him, but she had it up to here and was like, all right, you're done. But he kept, even though she cut him off and wasn't giving him money anymore, he still always have money and for cigarettes, which are $15 a pack, and he chain smokes, and he would always have money for booze, and nothing really changed when she stopped giving him money. And he would go out, a lot of nights he would go out, leave, you know, early evening, and then come back like early morning. And so one day, I get there, hey, how you doing? Say hi to the nanny. I'm grabbing the dog, and she goes, hey, can I ask you a favor? And I was like, yeah, what's up? And she goes, can I pay you $500 and I want you to follow my son when he leaves early evening and just follow him all night, and I want to know where he goes. And I was like, what? It was like almost like a private investigator type gig. And she's like, she goes, yeah, I want you to follow him all night. And she goes, I want to know what he's doing and how he's making money if he is. And the baby that she's watching is like over there. So she checks that the baby's far enough away. And then she goes, I think he's giving people blowjobs for money. And I was like, right? Got to remember, I'm just here to get the labradoodle and walk him for a little bit. And so now I'm sitting here getting a private investigator gig to see if the Colombian nanny's son is giving people blowjobs for cigarette money. And I was like, sure, you know, I always am up for making a little money. And so I agreed to do it. It was $500. I told my friend that has a car, I asked him, I said, I'll split the money with you, so $250 each if you help me. One, because I need a car would help, and two, I just wanted company. So the plan is we would sit in my friend's car on their block a little ways down and then wait for him to come out. If he walked, I would get out of the car and walk and follow him and go on the train or the bus or wherever he went. And then when we got somewhere, call my friend in the car, and he would come there. And as it was like leading up to it, I told her, I was like, is it worth $500? Because unless he, you know, blows the dude in public, I'm not going to be able to see. I'm just going to follow him to a bar and then probably follow him to an apartment building or something. And she's like, no, I want you to do it. And then all of a sudden it was canceled. She decided to, instead, the best thing, they sent the kid to the real dad's place to live with in Colombia for just to like give him a change and shake things up. So it ended up not happening. But this Colombian nanny she also asked me once, she offered me like $30,000 if I would marry someone that wanted to come over, one of her relatives from Colombia. So I would marry her, I get all this money, and then we pretend to be married, then she gets citizenship. Didn't do it. But anyway, so we're talking about Julio Nivelo. I'm like, there's no way. And she's like, nah, if he's been booted to Ecuador that many times and made it back, he knows how to move around. So anyway, the case basically goes cold. They didn't get him. It's like, how did he get out? You know, what was his plan? Well, a month later in Ecuador, he's arrested by the Ecuadorian police. And they don't extradite him back to the United States, but they have some law in Ecuador or some, I guess, outlook that says you can't embarrass us in other countries. So if you get caught, especially in a public type crime where you're lugging a big pail of gold, you got to do some punishment. So he got a year in jail and ended up doing 9 months in jail. And then when he got out recently, he came forward and did an interview, or I guess not too recently, but he did an interview where at least in his words, is the truth. He said, I miss my kids in the United States. My life is ruined. Who knows if that's true? My life is ruined. I just want to get the truth out. So this, if you believe him, is what happened. So he steals the gold. He makes it to Jersey in the van. He calls somebody in Midtown. Well, first, he sawed a little chunk of the gold off just to get some cash, and he brought that back to Midtown, and he got, what is it? I think he got like $200,000. Yeah, he got $230,000. And so he buys a suit, he gets a haircut, which makes him look totally different, which is a pretty good idea. And then he's talking to his fence in Midtown saying, all right, I want to do the big deal. I want to sell the whole thing. And at first, the guy's got a buyer for him, but it got so much publicity on the news in New York City, and there's so many pictures of him lugging this big bucket of gold that buyers keep getting nervous and dropping out. And then finally, at least according to Julio, the 4 times deported thief, at least according to him, his connection called him back and said, all right, I got a Russian guy that's willing to do it. And so he brings the gold in, they allegedly meets with this Russian guy, and he gets they strike a deal, and he gets $1.2 million in cash. And really, I think that is, if the whole thing, I think the hardest part would be trading all the gold for cash and getting away with that part of it. After that, it seems possible to totally get away with it. So he gets 1.2. The first thing he does is he gives $200,000 to his fiance, which will go down as one of the biggest mistakes that he made. Never give any money to the fiance. Then he put $600,000 in 3 shoeboxes in $100 bills, $400,000 in 50 in the bank purses, and he took $40,000. So the fiance has a bunch. According to him, there's a bunch in storage lockers in Jersey, and then he's got $40,000. He pays someone to drive him to Florida, and he's got to pay pretty good because right now at that point there's a $100,000 reward to detain him. So he's got to at least make it worth people's time not to tell on him to get that $100,000. So he pays someone to get him to Florida, and then he pays somebody to get him all the way to California. Which, again, you got to remember, this guy is very practiced up on how to move around the country and how to get out and in the country. And he gets to Ecuador, and he was saying, like, I didn't trust Mexico, I didn't trust Guatemala, obviously didn't trust the United States, but he thought once he got to Ecuador that it would be, he said once he got there, he turned around and said, bye, and thought he made it, thought that the game was over. But according to him, and it's kind of the lesson in No Country for Old Men, according to him, he didn't get the money. The fiance deserted him. So according to him, the money is in Jersey. I don't think a fiance ever really turned up, or the money ever turned up. He lives with his mom in Ecuador. He doesn't get to see his 3 adult children in the United States. At least according to him, his mom's restaurant closed because people thought that they were rich and didn't need to support her restaurant. According to him, he's really scared of being kidnapped because everyone thinks he's rich, but he's like, I don't have any money. But also, he's known as a folk hero and called the Golden Boy. So I guess, if you believe him, some woman ended up with all the money in Jersey. Kind of sounds like a Bruce Springsteen song. According to him, he didn't end up with any of it, and he lives with his mom, and she had to stop a restaurant because everyone hates her. But also, the story seems a little bit suspicious because it's just like, I don't know. I traded the money in with some Russian guy and I gave it to this girl. She deserted me. I don't have any of it. I did my 9 months in jail and that's it. So, case closed. I'm honest, and you can just tell he's got that like thief attitude where it's like I don't believe anything this guy says. But anyway, I enjoy a story like that. No one gets hurt. I'm sure Loomis is heavily insured and everybody got their gold money back. But I'm going to cut it off there. I'm still following the Heidi Brichard case really closely, so we'll keep talking about that as it unfolds. It's good to be back. I hope you're doing well. I'll see you next time. Why? Diving wide.